everyone, thank you so much for watching. She-Hulk is going to be a disaster, and everything that the director has said about the show really doesn't say much about the show, except for the fact that they really want to push a feminist agenda. And one of the biggest critiques that have come from this show, from myself included, is that the CGI on this show looks terrible. As soon as we got our first glimpse of She-Hulk, the CGI looked cartoonish. It looked like a video game. It's not something that we've come to expect from Marvel Studios, but at the same time, we've also heard that the visual effects team over at Marvel are understaffed, underpaid, and overworked, sometimes averaging 64 hours a week, and that was a good week. A lot of people saying that working for Marvel as a client is terrible, and it's caused them to leave the visual effects industry. They put impossible deadlines on visual effects teams, and a lot of times corners have to be cut, and this is what we're left with, this horrible CGI mess. And now She-Hulk director is blaming the criticism on the Marvel series CGI on our culture's belief in its ownership of women's bodies. Oh my gosh, this is coming from Bounding Into Comics in what very well may go down as one of the most baffling defenses of a Marvel product in all history. She-Hulk attorney-at-law director has asserted that the widespread criticism of the Disney Plus series CGI had nothing to do with its quality, but was rather our culture's belief in its ownership of women's bodies. She stated her opinion on the backlash to Jennifer Walters' uncanny valley-esque looks during an appearance at the series' August 3rd Television Critics Association press tour panel. There, the director asserted, in terms of the CGI being critiqued, I think it has to do with the culture's belief of its ownership of women's bodies. It has absolutely nothing to do with that. Absolutely nothing to do with that, and everything to do with the fact that it looks terrible. That's it. It has nothing to do with the body, nothing to do with how she looks, everything to do with the fact that this is supposed to be realistic and it just doesn't look that way. She goes on to say that I think a lot of the critique comes from feeling like they're able to tear apart the CGI woman. There's a lot of talk about her body type, and we based it on Olympian athletes and not bodybuilders. But I think if we'd gone the other way, we would have been facing the same critique. I think it's very hard to win when you make women's bodies. There's absolutely nothing wrong with like the design of She-Hulk. They're not saying like, oh, there's no way a woman looks like that. They're not critiquing that. They're critiquing the fact that it looks like a video game, and this is supposed to come from Marvel Studios. But at the same time, there are things that Marvel has put out that just doesn't look good. And guess what? They got the same critique. You need to separate the two and realize that we're not critiquing a body. We're critiquing the CGI. One person who's able to like take the bad CGI and joke about it later on is Ryan Reynolds in Green Lantern. That was terrible CGI, and people called it out. Did it have anything to do with Ryan Reynolds' body? No. You taking it and twisting it into something like, oh, we're just critiquing a woman's body. No, that's not what we're doing. It just doesn't look real. And entertainment is supposed to be escapism. But the director wasn't the only one to have a say. She-Hulk star herself, Tatiana Maslany, echoed this rhetoric when she said this: we're so fixated on women's body, whether it's aesthetically or politically or in terms of rights or in terms of autonomy. I think what we do in this show is in touch with all of these concepts. Nobody's taking away her bodily autonomy. We're just saying that the CGI is terrible. This is such a bad look for this show. This is such a bad look for the director and the star of the show, spinning it to where like the fans are critiquing the body, and it's absolutely has nothing to do with that. We're simply critiquing the horrible CGI, and maybe if you cared a little bit more about that and worked on that instead of spinning something that has absolutely nothing to do with what the fans are complaining about, maybe you wouldn't sound so terrible. But that's just my opinion. What is yours? I would love to know in those comments down below, and I will see you in my next video. Bye everyone. So I really hope you guys enjoyed watching. Please come and say hi on Twitter and Instagram and all of my social medias. I also want to shout out my patrons, my Harlequins, Jokers, and my Dark Knights, as well as my Rogue Gallery channel members. I appreciate your patronage and your membership so much. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to subscribe and let me know in those comments down below what kind of videos you'd like to see in the future. Bye everyone.